I'd like to welcome back Mr. Karl Jacob. You all right, man? You want to invite some people down?
Yeah. Everybody come down. You know who you are. Got co-director T. Arthur Cottam. Got all my producers. My mom, my sister. Come on, guys. Come down here. Larry, where are you?
Right here.
All right. Who are we missing? Jess? You here? Jess Berger? Where's she? Oh, there she is. Come on down. Okay. Well, that was something. It's a real big screen. So,
Karl, here's how we'll do this. You want to give these guys a round of applause? So here's how we're going to do this. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to think of some questions for these fine folk, and I'll start out with a couple questions of my own. And I'm going to back up to the very beginning. I know we just got to the end, and I know you have questions about the end, but I'm going to back up to the beginning because I feel like the setup of the film is one of the best setups of a film I've seen in a really long time. And we've talked a little bit about that. When the first conversation we had on the phone, we talked a little bit about the beginning of the film, this sort of genesis of the story. So I want to talk a little bit about the phone call and about that jumping off point, the sort of crisis that you don't see, that you only get a little tiny snippet of to set everything else in motion, and sort of how that came about. And then, of course, if you want to talk a little bit about, it seems like it's a very personal film. So if you want to talk a little bit about where all that came from, that'd be great.
well, the opening sequence is unique in that many pieces of that were taken from an actual phone call that was left for me. That was a point in my life that was pretty low, and but it inspired this, which was good. It was 2011, I guess. I was at South by Southwest. This had just happened while I was there, and I had heard about it happening. So I was riding a motorcycle back from Texas to New York as a way to sort of clear my head, because it was cheaper to buy a motorcycle than it was to rent a car that year at South by. So, and then all these other things came sort of flooding back, and it's a combination of my own stories friends have told me, and just, I guess, ideas that I'd been thinking about as a result of this breakup. So it is a work of fiction, but, it's taken from truth, and I think that's probably why it, feels so good or feels so bad, depending on how you want to look at it. Yeah.
Are you guys ready yet? It's late, I don't want to... There you go. Okay, right in the middle.
How was it shooting in Minnesota, and would you think of doing that in the future?
Sorry, what was the question?
How was it shooting in Minnesota, and would you do that again in the future, you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's where I grew up, and I love shooting there, I love working there. I think that there are a lot of things about the culture there that are really unique, including sort of this whole water, stuff that goes on, all the fresh water. I mean, we have a very limited time of summer, so when we do, everyone just sort of explodes out of their houses and just goes crazy in the water. Yeah, I mean, I love it. It was awesome to have. I mean, that's my actual family reunion. I worked with the 4 core actors in New York, and we dropped them in the middle of my actual family reunion. This is my actual mother. That's my sister down at the end there, and and they're also very helpful. Hannah doubled as the production coordinator, which was something she didn't realize she was doing, I think, at the time, which was very helpful for us. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, I would shoot more in Minnesota. And as I'm watching that, just thinking about how we pulled that together in such a little time, I just, I had such a great crew of people that were involved in the project. I mean, we trusted each other a lot, and my family helped out a lot. So it was just, it was awesome. So yeah, yes, I would shoot again in Minnesota.
Right here.
The girl who played Sarah, I just found her spellbinding and really, really fantastic. And I
Yeah,
also
that happens.
It happens, yeah. And I really enjoyed some of the bold decisions that you made with pace and allowing the actors to kind of sit in the moment. Could you talk a little bit about how the two of you worked together? Were there a lot of things that you were directing by having these long moments, or was that on set something more spontaneous?
Well, all the dialogue is improvised, and we rehearsed for 6 months. We being, Kate and I and Larry and Jenny Prediger. So by the time we got to set, we knew our characters so well that, I just wanted to let the camera roll. I mean, I'm a fan of naturalism, I'm a fan of improvisation, and I'm a fan of, I guess, slow scenes, as you've probably noticed. But the pacing overall, I think, was really the awesome work of our editor, Dustin DeFay. But we had him on set, he was cutting while we were shooting, so we were able to go back and talk to him, and we would have meetings every day, and ask him about if there were any gaps in the story or little pieces that we might need to shoot. We had the luxury of going in and looking at the edit and saying, oh right, maybe we should add this story point in this way and bridge it with this kind of scene. Did that answer all of your question, or was there more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right up here.
Did you shoot chronologically, and can you talk a little bit about the size of the crew and if you used multiple cameras, that kind of thing?
Sure. We tried to shoot as chronologically as possible. The size of the crew is about what you see here, maybe a little bit bigger. I mean, it was T and I and Ben, and that was pretty much the whole crew, aside from Jessie, who's amazing. This is the first time she's ever produced anything. She really helped us set together. I found her from a Craigslist ad that I put out in Minneapolis, and I was just like, we're doing this crazy thing, you in? She's like, yeah, sounds cool. Oh, right, this crazy, where's he from? Guatemala? Yeah, we had a sound guy all set up, and he had this company that he made all this money, and he's just got all this equipment, and he kind of knows how to use it, and he knows sound pretty well. He donated all this equipment, said he was going to operate sound, and then some tragedy happened in his company, and he had to leave town at the last minute. He's like, oh, but I got this really great guy, he'll do a really good job, and it's like this little guy from Guatemala who's just like, hey man, what are we doing now? And we were just like, this is the volume, here's the boom, and he ended up being an awesome addition to the crew, and was just like a wacky dude. He learned really fast, and it was awesome.
I'm gonna squeeze one of my own.
Okay.
I promise, it'll be quick. Did you always intend to use your family, and was the family reunion always part of the story, or did that come in some other way?
Yeah, I had always intended to do it that way. In fact, we I say family reunion because it was, but we have family reunions probably 4 or 5 times a year. I mean, everyone lives really close, and everyone's like, what are you doing this weekend? I don't know, family reunion, so I kind of called one, or said, hey, let's do it at this time since I'm going to be shooting this movie, and hey, do you guys want to act? So yes, it was always.
You know that you're probably the only family that can probably do that without killing each other.
Yeah, that's
true.
I guess I discovered that, and it's a shame Jenny Prediger's not here, and Kate's not here. I mean, whenever Jenny gets up and talks about this movie, she really talks about how much fun she had there and how much she learned from the family, I guess, in terms of our ability to not kill each other, which is, I guess, kind of remarkable.
And they're not here because they're both making other movies.
They're working. Yeah, they really wanted to be here. They're really bummed, but they're, too busy, which I guess is great. Yeah, they're working.
Go ahead right there.
Just because you're working with a kind of true story fictional account, what brings you to the point of the childhood sweetheart, and how did you develop that kind of story form?
Did you guys all hear that?
The question was, how, where did the childhood sweetheart come in when I was developing the story? Well, I was interested in exploring this idea of being well. First of all, trauma at an early age, which is, I mean, it's not that big of a trauma, but this idea of fixating on an unattainable goal, I guess, and not being able to attain that goal because it's unattainable, and having that sort of prevent you from going forward in your life, which I think is a pretty universal story, and it's something that most of us can relate to. But this, I think everyone has that first love, and that first moment when they realize, they want to act on it in one way or another, and the trauma of not being able to do that, or sort of not being able to let it sort of fade away on its own, I think is something that I've thought about, and when I would talk to friends, or I was like, oh, that girl, I really wish I could have gotten to know her. She drove away at summer camp, mom took her, never saw her again. I think we had something there. It was like, come on, you guys were 10. So I mean, I guess that's when I was laying on the floor and all my furniture was gone, I was thinking about that. So that part is very true. Yeah.
We've got time for a couple more quick ones, yeah? Yeah, 2 more. We go here, and then right in the middle there.
Mine's very simple, just what was your budget for this film?
You're not supposed to ask that question.
No, that doesn't count as a question.
It was modest. Well, we'll call it shoestring.
So they teach us in school, about slice of life and how you did a beautiful job at kind of crafting this raw and, true emotional story. Where did you decide, and when did you decide to go against the conventional 3-act structure, and how did that come into play in your, in your storytelling?
Well.
Your mom has something she wants to
Did you have something you wanted to say, Mom? I guess all we really did, in our mind, there kind of was a 3-act structure, but I think it sort of strayed away from that a little bit as we were shooting. Yeah, probably. But we were hoping for that. I mean, everyone who worked on this had experience working in this environment before, which is an improvised story. I think we actually had a lot more structure than some of the sets I've been on that have been like this. But in terms of thinking about the writing from like, we're going to have this many acts, or the structure's going to be like this, it really wasn't like that. It was more like movements of the emotional arcs of each character and how they intersect. And we just let that sort of naturally flow when we were workshopping during our rehearsals, and then Tia and I would get on the phone and talk about how did this rehearsal sort of inform where the story could go, and then we would redo the structure a little bit, and then tailor the rehearsals again to sort of just I guess a long workshop process. So by the time we got to set, we had this structure that was kind of all laid out on note cards, and then sometimes new ideas would come up. The B storyline came up, and we started inserting that. So we had a big wall with note cards on it, and we would move the story points around, and then we'd move locations around, and be like, this would be good here. And then we would just sort of take the cards down once we had covered story points, and then just kept shooting until we had them all. And then in terms of the way it ended up, I mean, Dustin, was kind of a genius in terms of being able to get all that pulled off. So I mean, he's probably more to blame for the non-conventional act structure than anyone else, honestly, because we had a lot of footage to sort of sort through. Yeah.
And the actors also had input. The actors also had input. Like, we had structured the story before we started shooting, and then once we started shooting, we got input from some of the actors about what they thought that their characters would do, and that would sort of change the storyline. And then we'd go back, and Karl and I would figure out, okay, well, how are we going to restructure the storyline based on, what certain characters would do, or what actors, feel like their characters would do in those circumstances.
Oh, I just realized I didn't finish answering your question about how we shot in terms of number of cameras. We had 2 cameras that were going all the time because we needed to get coverage, and there's no way we could replicate most of the stuff that we did because it was just things that sort of happened, and we're like, all right, that's it, we got it. Was that the whole question, the guy who asked about the two
Yeah.
cameras and the technical
What
stuff?
kind of camera do you use?
7D, 2 of them, with prime lenses, fast prime lenses, whenever we could. Yeah.
You guys, don't forget to hand in your ballots. I want to thank all of these people for coming. Round of applause. And there are additional screenings. So if you tell your friends, do your tweet, do your Facebook, and come back and visit us again. Thank you, you guys.